not a rough draft, but I think it's a whole new, application.
All right, I did the go live, but I don't know if I remember the recording. Do you remember how to do the recording part?
You guys, I saw something. Hold on. You never had any input in that. Brownfield, 23 seconds.
Yeah, it says we're live.
Oh, yeah.
But don't we need to record it?
We're recording.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ready for roll call?
Emma Hall. Susanna Warren.
Present.
Sam Hudson. Ivy Chandler. Emma Kennard.
Present.
Mary Alice Adams.
Present.
Miguel Clark. James Childs.
Present.
I'm sure you have a quorum.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the review of our minutes from February 8th.
I make a motion to
A second.
accept.
Okay, so a motion was made by Commissioner Adams and second by Mr. Childs.
Call the question. Warren,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Childs,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Chandler,
Goodbye.
approval of the minutes.
Oh, yes.
Clerk,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, that brings us to our communications.
I'm going to go to my PowerPoint here. You have a PDF in your packet that also has a space for you to take some notes. I prepared this Brownfield 101 presentation, what the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority actually do. Some of this may be reminders for you. It's always good to kind of have some framework for your discussions of, what does statute say you can do as an authority.
Is state and federal the same?
No.
They differentiate.
In what context? For funding or?
For funding.
That would be different. There are some federal grants and loan programs available. There's state grant and loan programs. They each kind of have their own requirements. This will be a very high-level discussion. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. It's anticipated we'll do further presentations, especially related to the new housing activities, but this is a good place to start. So first, we need to know what a brownfield is. This definition has expanded quite a bit over the years, and it's a much more broad definition here in Michigan than it is nationally. Nationally, it's that more traditional contaminated piece of property. But here in Michigan, that can also be blighted, functionally obsolete, a historic resource. Not too often, but there are some instances where we see a transit-oriented property can qualify. Properties that are owned by the land bank or any parcels that are adjacent or contiguous to these other definitions can also be included in a brownfield plan. And then our new activities is housing development. So obviously you have an established brownfield authority here, but you may have some questions sometimes. What why do you have an authority? What can you actually do as an authority? So the biggest reason is it's an economic tool that can help your city accomplish goals that may not be as easily accomplished otherwise. A prime example is applying for grants and loans. If you have a developer in your community that has a good project that you want to support, maybe there's some environmental cleanup that just does not fit in their budget to make the project go forward. As the Brownfield Authority, you could apply to Eagle for a grant or a loan to help assist the project. So that's one example. Brownfield TIF is the most common one. You guys are very familiar with Brownfield plans, and that's that tax increment financing tool that can also help reimburse a developer or the city or the authority for their eligible costs. And this authority also has a local Brownfield revolving fund, and we'll get into that too.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Does this new housing initiative also have to meet the other property requirements?
So you just have to have one of those to be qualified as a brownfield. You don't have to have multiple. So you could be contaminated, you could be functionally obsolete, or you could have housing development activities.
But to do the housing development activities, does the property have to be either functionally obsolete, contaminated, blighted, or any of those things?
No.
Okay.
And we likely would want to have a larger discussion with this board if a housing brownfield plan is something you're supportive of. There's some extra requirements that go in there, but it's definitely a need across the state as well as here. I know as far as the city is concerned, housing is their number1 goal. So I think a larger discussion is warranted, but that's definitely something that's good to keep in mind. So locally, we have our Brownfield TIF program, tax increment financing. Those plans are approved here by the Brownfield Authority as well as the City Commission. You also have your local Brownfield revolving fund. Those you can use to also support eligible activities. No longer has to be in a brownfield plan. And then state TIF is our state education tax and our school operating. And so if a project wants to go over those activities other than what's statutorily allowed, it would require additional approvals from the state, either through Eagle, the Michigan Strategic Fund, or now with the Housing MISHDA.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have, or do we plan to put this information on our website?
Yes, it's as
Okay.
part of the packet, so
Okay.
it will be on the website.
Just for others that want to be educated.
Yep.
I know where to lead them.
So we've thrown around that term, tax increment financing TIF, but what exactly is that? Essentially, you have a property that has a baseline taxable value, assuming it's not a tax exempt property. And after that property is sold or redeveloped, the taxes go up. So that increment between the base value and that new future taxable value is that tax increment. And the Brownfield plan allows you to capture that increment to redevelop certain eligible costs. After all those eligible costs are reimbursed, then that higher tax increment would go to all the taxing jurisdictions. But that base value is still received by the local jurisdiction. So no one's losing any money by putting a Brownfield plan in place. And I personally am a visual person, so I kind of like this picture. Essentially, it's the same thing I just talked about, but that blue base value is where your property was before it was redeveloped. The larger greenhouse is now it's redeveloped, it's taxed at a higher rate. And you can see that orange shows you that tax increment that's available. And then the Brownfield plan allows for reimbursement during the main period of the plan to reimburse for eligible activities, and then up to 5 full years can be captured by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for the LBRF. I mentioned this, but this is very good to remember. No taxing jurisdiction will get less money under a Brownfield plan than it does now. If that redevelopment does not occur, the taxes don't go up. So when you put a brownfield plan in place, you're not taking anything away, they still get those base values. But essentially, it's a win-win because a developer could get reimbursed for their costs now, and then once those costs are reimbursed, then those taxing jurisdictions will receive the benefit of the higher tax value. So what is eligible to be reimbursed in a brownfield plan? Any sort of environmental investigation or cleanup, demolition activities, abatement, which could be asbestos, lead, or mold. And I will say one of the new changes along with the housing development activities this past July was that you can now have a combination of demolition and abatement up to $250,000 that's statutorily eligible for both local and state capture. You don't have to get that extra level of state approval. Certain communities can get infrastructure improvements and site preparations approved. Benton Harbor is what's known as a core community, so that is eligible here in the city of Benton Harbor. And then new, we have this housing development, which is for 120% of AMI or below.
You said core?
Core community, also it can be called either the qualified local governmental unit or qualified local unit of government. So we've also talked about this local brownfield revolving fund. This has gone through a few different name changes as well as many other acronyms associated with brownfield redevelopment. It was previously called the local site remediation revolving fund. So you may hear it referred to with different terminology, but it's currently called the LBRF. This is a pot of money, as we've already talked about, after those eligible costs were reimbursed, the Brownfield Authority can collect for up to 5 years. And essentially, this creates an opportunity for you to have a sustainable program. You know, you may have some money, but once you help someone else, if it's not given out as a loan, if it's given out as a grant, then that money is gone. So this is a program to help revolve those funds, keep your program sustainable to support other eligible activities and other projects in your community.
And I might add, you presently have about $565,000 in that particular account.
For the sake of education, for those that don't know, the $500 million development that came through the Brownfield, with some of the development that's going on now, just like the Emma Hole flats that went up, was that property also within the Brownfield?
That is within a brownfield, but that's within the county's brownfield.
Okay.
plan. Not
The Benton Harbor's property? I thought that on the other side was.
all of the Harbor Shores redevelopment is within the county's brownfield redevelopment plan.
The Benton Harbor land?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So this, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Now, I would like to know, how does that impact Benton Harbor taxes? The
How
question
does
she
it
just
impact the taxes?
Yes, the county's brownfield.
The county has the ability and is currently capturing tax increment revenues from the development that has gone on those properties. And it is using that tax increment to reimburse many of the upfront costs that were incurred to get infrastructure into those areas and clean those areas up and make them redevelopment ready. Eligible activities, as we refer to them as. And they're continuing to do that until such time that those entities have been made whole.
And then at that time because she mentioned that part of that redevelopment includes Benton Harbor property. So at that time that those entities are made whole, will then Benton Harbor start to collect taxes on that part of the property in that brownfield that belongs to Benton Harbor?
Eventually they will. It's a little more complicated than that because there was an annexation process. The concerns that you have are shared by your colleagues in the city of St. Joseph, who contributed property to the Harbor Shores redevelopment also. I say contributed in a colloquial sense. they too are giving up those tax increment revenues to the county so that the county can reimburse for the upfront costs that went into the redevelopment of those sites. But short answer is yes, eventually there is a deadline in that agreement that says after which they can no longer capture tax increment revenues. So whether they hit the reimbursement maximum or whether they hit that deadline, that date deadline, they have to stop capturing, and then those monies go back to the respective taxing jurisdictions, City of St. Joseph, City of Benton Harbor, and Benton Charter Township.
Thank you.
So, just so I'm clear, I know that they received some federal funds for the super cleanup that took place, and all of that was under the jurisdiction of the county. And once that's over, when those years are allotted and up, then Benton Harbor capture those tax dollars.
Correct.
So I'm just thinking that all of those properties that were within the brownfield, just like the property that Mr. Clovis just cleaned up on Main there, that's Benton Harbor, not the county.
Correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to see how this overall thing just worked. I mean, I guess I forgot what portion of the line of property did it start at Riverview, or?
Once again, it's not to interrupt, but it's not as simple as
I
that.
know it's complicated.
The
We'll,
line
yeah.
is gerrymandered according to property boundaries as opposed to roadways and municipal jurisdictions. There is a map, and perhaps I can
Okay.
dig that out and get that to you at the next meeting, that shows what the entire boundary of the Harbor Shores TIF district is, Tax Increment Financing District is.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
So this is and I only have a couple more slides, so we can get to the rest of our meeting. But this is a flow chart for how that TIF approval and reimbursement process would work. So first, the developer would come to the authority, they would fill out a project application, which we will also be discussing in the agenda here today. And the authority would evaluate if that seems to make sense, if it's a project they likely want to support, and if we want to write a brownfield plan. Then the brownfield plan would need to be approved by this body first, and then it would go to the city commission. The city commission needs to have a public notice 10 days in advance, and also send out a notification to the local taxing jurisdiction 10 days in advance.
Doesn't that apply for every development that comes through here?
Every brownfield plan.
Every brownfield plan, the plan itself, not cleanups.
I mean, not unless the city has their own policies outside of that, but this is specifically for brownfield plans.
Okay.
Then
I
it,
guess I'm just wondering because, go ahead. For
so that
time's
public
sake.
hearing
Yeah.
allows the public to be involved. They've been noticed 10 days in advance if they're, checking those public notifications, and they can have a say in,
Right.
how they feel about the project. The city commission also needs to vote and approve the brownfield plan by a resolution. So essentially, it's not just that these activities can be done, but they are accepted locally as a project that the Brownfield Authority and the city wants to support. And then the Brownfield Authority would enter into a reimbursement agreement with the developer. If it's a local plan, we kind of stop there. If it needs to go on, what we call an Act 381 work plan, maybe you have some environmental cleanup activities that really needs Eagle's approval, or some infrastructure that we really need that state funding for that might go to the Michigan Strategic Fund, or these housing development activities, those would go to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. So if that's the case, it would go on to that second level of approval. I will say just briefly, when we talk about the state tax dollars, I know a lot of times people feel like, oh, wait, I don't want to be taking money away from the schools. The schools would be made whole, so they're not having anything taken away. So there is a process by which they're made whole.
And let me jump in a second, Teresa. Historically, with only a few exceptions, This authority has chosen not to capture school tax revenues for that simple reason, the perceived belief that you're taking something from the schools.
Yeah.
It's a sometimes an uphill push, and it sometimes receives a lot of public criticism.
Yeah, buddy.
So when she says will be made whole, it kind of implies to me that something's been taken away that will be replaced.
Well, there is a capture of that tax increment for the state education tax and for the school operating.
So initially they do take it.
Well, they still would get their base value just like every other taxing jurisdiction. But that increment would be captured, and then I believe that process is at the end of the year, they're made whole.
By the state treasury, not
Now,
you or
The
the
state.
state. Correct.
and just one other question, out of curiosity. If a Brownfield approved plan goes to the city commission and they said, no, we don't want to do this, what's generally the process? Is it just dead? Or do we make adjustments and maybe take it back? Or how's that usually?
I would say it depends on, why the city commission chose not to approve it. If it was, hey, we didn't really know about this, you didn't communicate with us, we have questions, we need more time. Maybe they asked to, push it down to, a couple months down the road, so there's opportunities for meetings. If they're totally against it and they say this is not in line with the goals we have for the city, then the project just doesn't move forward. It could be, we're not ready for this right now, and you come back and bring it later. So it kind of depends on the situation. But if the Brownfield plan is approved, either if it's a local plan, which as Mark indicated, it's typically been the case for your Brownfield plans. Or if it was a work plan and we had that other approval, then your developer is going to complete those eligible activities. So within their redevelopment, not everything they do is eligible for reimbursement. This board is aware of that. You've seen reimbursement agreements. Some of their activities don't apply, and that would be my job to review that according to statute to see what is eligible for reimbursement, what's in line with your signed and executed developer reimbursement agreement. So they would submit all their documentation, proof of payment, and after that, the city would collect the taxes as they normally do. The property owner pays their taxes like normal, so nothing is different to them on how they pay their tax bill. They pay their taxes as long as those taxes are paid. They're collected by the city. The city would take note of any of that tax increment and send that increment to the Brownfield Authority. And then those reimbursements would be approved and paid back to the developer, and also the TIF can be collected for those 5 years after the developer is reimbursed for the local Brownfield development.
By choice, if we choose.
Yes, I'm trying to think of a situation why you wouldn't want to do that. I suppose you could negotiate that if you wanted to forego that capture, but
okay.
that's what helps make your program sustainable.
If I may, I had that question before, and one of them was that the city was strapped for cash. And this was during the emergency management period, and I'm thinking that maybe this is a time that we need to just release these funds so that the city can capture them, because they're in more use for them than we are with the money just sitting. That was just.
The opposite opinion, or the counterpoint to that, is that you have the ability in that 5-year period of capturing not only taxes that would go to the city, but you're capturing everybody else's tax revenue as well.
Well, yeah.
So you're getting more by continuing to capture over that 5-year period. I think the key question is, when those funds are placed into the revolving loan fund of this authority, how they are used. You have the ability to help drive infrastructure improvements into certain areas of the city that, in the absence of those funds, would have to be funded by general fund or some other source in the city. So you're actually in a position to help the city and receive even more dollars than than the city would.
Well, now, I mean, I see that now over time that things have,
Yep.
gotten back a little on track. No longer under emergency state, so.
I have another question. If a contractor or whomever we struck an agreement with, for whatever reason, does not pay their taxes on a property, what's the process then? They've not paid their taxes, we're in an agreement, does that effectively dissolve the agreement or what happens? How does that work?
Well, you have a couple things going on there. As far as are they in default of their agreement, that's gonna depend on the terms of your agreement. But I'm sure it has in there, you have to pay your taxes. If they don't pay their taxes, there's no tax increment to collect. So that developer would not be reimbursed for those costs. Now, the Brownfield Authority, if you have your own eligible costs or expenses, or if the city has their own eligible expenses built into the Brownfield plan, they may still be able to be reimbursed through the tax delinquent fund. And that kind of depends on how the city is set up, but, or that might go through the county since you're a city board. But the developer, if the taxes are not paid, would not get reimbursed.
Can I add something?
Sure.
I really want you to become comfortable with the concept of the TIF because it's a tool that we'll use. It's highly unlikely that you ever have a contractor or developer coming before you that is in conflict with what the city would have. I'm basically out there beating the bushes looking for people to do specific projects in the city. And you may recall when we were talking about recruiting someone to fill this role, I was very concerned about making sure we got somebody that would be able to handle the TIF. The TIF mechanism isn't unique to brownfields. This is the same tool I used back in the 80s to rework the Vincent Hotel over there and get parking lots and so forth. Also used it down here for the TIF for North Main Industrial Park, where we cleared out all the houses and things down there. Basically, what happens is as we start, well, for example, last fall, we lost 2 good housing development projects because there was no grocery store or drugstore within 1 mile of the sites. And that failed the walkability test that NISTA had for their low-income financing. So for that reason, with the same thing happened with Project T, but we wound up going to the missing middle housing to get that. But I intend to approach the same developers that couldn't get us financed because of the grocery store issue to say, would you consider working with the city and utilizing its TIF process to help finance your development? The goal that we've set of trying to get 1,000 houses built in the next 5 years depends on working with all of these tools. Neighborhood enterprise zone, TIF, whatever is available to us. As a matter of fact, I think I mentioned to you before, we've talked with the University of Michigan about getting a couple of their professors out of Topman to come in and work with us on helping to look at all of these options and how best to fit them together and use them as incentives. We also are in a federal the zone that we've got set up here, but it's never used, and it could also be used. So we'll be looking at those. But I just wanted to make you aware that it's not something you need to be afraid of. It's a tool that can really be very helpful to us. And I might add also, depending on certain circumstances, there may be times when it's to our advantage to utilize the county's brownfield process. For example, Modern Plastics over here, whenever that all shakes out, is probably going to require, between demolition and then the cleanup afterward, it could be 10, 12 million or more. And because the county treasurer now has that in their possession, it may well be that there are advantages to utilizing them to do it.
Yeah.
But we look at those things project by project.
Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Little's, point, and I totally agree, because it's why we haven't gotten as far, is having those professional people that are aware of how things work and how they're supposed to work together. Just like that position that you just mentioned, I'm glad that it's somebody that is aware of that. My question though becomes, we're talking a lot about building, but in housing is very important, and we need housing. But where the jobs are gonna come from for these people to be able to afford a house? And I'm hoping that we get to that, because I'd like to go back up to number 8 when Mr. Reese is finished, Madam Chair.
Teresa, if you want to proceed, please.
So I think that alludes to what the slide is talking about. How do you evaluate a project? Not every project that comes before you is gonna be a good fit. Not every project are you going to want to support. And so when a project comes before you, what are the tools that you should look at to determine how to evaluate whether you support it? According to the statute, it says it has to be a public good. It's kind of up to you what that means, but typically bringing jobs to the community, investment into the community, increasing the tax base. Those are all benefits to the city. And historically, I believe those are main factors that this board has been supportive of. So those are 3 main metrics that I would definitely keep in mind when you're evaluating projects. It could also mean that it aligns with city goals, which we know a big goal of the city is housing. That's a need. Some other things you might want to evaluate is, someone's coming to you for support. Is there maybe another avenue that might be a better way to fund their project? Or do you want to work in partnership? Maybe the Brownfield tool is one tool that's layered. Maybe there's other funding incentives that are a good fit to make it work. So you may not be the only option of support. One thing is, if it's environmentally contaminated site, is there a liable party that can help for the cleanup? And maybe you're just helping with some of the other eligible activities. So it needs to be a public good. It's up to you and ultimately the city commission to decide if it is a public good. So that's the end of this presentation. Basically, a Brownfield Authority is a very powerful economic tool. We touched mostly on the tax increment financing, because that's the main tool that the authority does. But do keep in mind that you can apply for grants and loans as well. We will be discussing whether you want to go after an EPA assessment grant. Maybe next month we can talk about that. And when projects come forward, that may be, other funding incentives you may help a developer decide might be good fit as well.
Commissioner Adams, if you want to proceed with your question.
Yes, because, oh gosh, with this Justice 40 initiative thing that's going on from a federal standpoint, there's a lot of funding that's available. It's like crunch with these dates, with the due dates of this funding. Oh wow, I just came off of a webinar earlier with some people in Chicago. They'll be coming through to hopefully help with funding and.
If there were specific programs, like I know they have a climate
She's a Brownfield
initiative,
specialist.
and then, obviously with the climate initiative, you have to have those.
Yeah, it's a whole team. They
Metrics
work with
met.
Andrews University. And it's a whole team of them over in Chicago that came down last year. They did soil and all of that sampling. And they'll be dealing with air this trip when they're coming down. Miguel, you had opportunities, I think Satana did too, I'm not sure who else did, but, they're more than willing to have grant writers at our disposal, and I think this is time for us to try to utilize what we can, when we can, and try to hit some of these deadlines. So I'm hoping that, with that being said, Madam Chair, that we can do something. If some of these grants that I'll be more than happy to share that I run across with our new consultant, and we can try to beat some of these deadlines, that if it's at all possible, that we could have a special meeting if it's required, I don't know. However, what that would look like to apply for some of this funding instead of just letting it roll by. You know, I do so much research, I see other communities, just millions and millions of dollars. That's why other people here go other places, because people are building, they're doing the work.
Thank you. Anyone else on the board have a question regarding the presentation?
I have a question. You say Brownfield can work with other groups. Are we limited to work with certain groups if they funded by federal?
Are you limited to working with certain groups?
That did money that fund by the federal?
There may be certain like grant and loan programs that like a specific private entity can't apply for, but the Brownfield Authority can. But as far as your partnership with other groups, if you see it as a community good, you're not limited from that. I would say it may be good to think about like what is your role and what makes sense according to statute for the types of activities you support. And it may be saying, I encourage you to check out some other entities on your own that might be a good fit to support another part of your project, and you kind of focus on the brownfield portion.
And I'll add, we use the term partnership very, very loosely in discussions like this today. Partnership that you're already involved with, for example, would be your support of the Tri-County Head Start potential redevelopment of property, your support of consideration of support for the Liberty Theater, just to name a couple right out of the box. You are a partner. You're a partner in the Ox Creek redevelopment project. You contributed to those, at least two of those programs potentially.
Which program, which state come from?
No, you made a contribution to the Ox Creek development
Right.
on the front end.
Right.
You committed to a potential contribution to the Tri-County Head Start.
Right.
They acquired that building.
Right.
And you've been approached by the Downtown Development Authority, who now is in possession of Liberty Theater, to perhaps partner with them going forward on some redevelopment issues.
Okay.
I just want to make that clear.
Are there any other questions from the board on the slides? Does anyone have any other questions? If not, we're gonna move on.
So my contact information is included in the packet if there's other follow-up questions.
So then we have staff memo.
So this memo is regarding your comprehensive brownfield plan. Fishbeck did review the plan. As you're aware, you have what we consider a multi-chapter plan. So that means there's several projects all within this comprehensive plan. I believe there's 37 chapters currently. And as we've already alluded to, terminology can change, statute can change, state agencies can change. And so Fishbeck reviewed the plan with the intent that we may need to make some updates to bring it currently aligned with statute. But we didn't want to make any changes in the form that a plan was approved at the time. Those statutes were accurate at the time, that terminology was accurate at the time. So we determined that it was best to leave that standalone comprehensive plan as is. We still think there's value in making sure all references moving forward are accurate, in line with current terminology and statute guidance. So we are recommending that moving forward, you would move to standalone plans. So what that means is, if you have development occurring on one of these 37 sites that are already in your plan, those would operate under your comprehensive plan that's still active until all those projects are closed out. But if you have a brand new development coming forward in a new site, then we would create a separate brownfield plan just for that site moving forward.
For what it's worth, I support that recommendation.
So do I. I never could figure out why the others weren't separated.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Chandler.
So, if I understand correctly, you just want to keep, no, here's the question. If a statute has changed, does that change any of the other 37 chapters that are already in place or?
No,
Agreements.
because those were approved at that time. So everything that was approved at that time is eligible because that resolution was made at that time.
At the time
And for
that
the most
statute-
part, it's not like, oh, something was eligible and it's not now. It may be like, for example, the housing activities. That's approved now, it wouldn't have been approved then. But there's terminologies, and if we
Grandfather.
reference certain sections of statute, that reference section may not be accurate anymore because they've added on. And so we want it to be clean and accurate. So it does not change anything with your existing plan. Those are all still good to go.
I agree. Are there any other comments? Okay. So the next section is our public comment section. Oh, I went too far. Do we have to?
Well, if I could just, I just received an email prior to this meeting from the DDA that they have some downtown forums going on that are open to the public, and there is a meeting on March 25th at the library, I believe, from 6 to 7:30. It looks like they're looking for ideas and suggestions from community stakeholders. So if that's something that the board wishes for me to attend on your behalf and report back, I could do so.
So I heard you say downtown forum. What was the, can you repeat that again, please? I heard downtown forum, but what was it about and the time and?
There's 3 dates on there, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Is
like
it
I
open
said,
to
I
the
just got this right before, so I have not read this in detail. It says 2024 Downtown Community Forums, Introduction and Objectives.
Public, open to the public?
Yes, it's open to the public. March 25th. Understand the city hall 2026, March Library. All forum meetings will begin at 6 and go until 7:30. More information can be found on bentonharbordda@gmail.com.
But it doesn't say what is the topic, or is the topic the downtown public forum?
It says the objectives of the forum are gather ideas and suggestions from community stakeholders, compile information to present back to the Benton Harbor downtown
Yes.
community and other local governmental bodies to confirm our mutual understanding, and apply gained knowledge to formulate and implement plans for the physical improvement and marketing of downtown Benton Harbor as part of the DDA mission.
So can I ask Mark, I mean, what, do you think that is necessary for Teresa to go? Because I would think it wouldn't be, but maybe you can give us an insight on what your opinion would be here.
We haven't attended these types of events in the past.
Mhm.
However, I think that it may be a good idea to establish a communication channel and rapport between this authority and the DDA. The DDA has the potential to overlap with a tax increment financing district, what you're doing as a Brownfield authority with your Brownfield tax increment financing district. So there may be some similarities, there may be some concerns. I guess I would have to say, I think a fact-finding mission on Teresa's part would probably be worth the effort, worth the time. That might be satisfied, however, with a simple one-on-one meeting with the likes of Richard Hensel, who I believe is the
One-on-one.
chair of the DDA.
Go ahead, please, Ms. Chandler.
So we don't have the downtown development authority, is that what DDA is?
Yes.
Yes.
So we don't have like a partnership or something with them? I mean, Ox Creek is kind of like downtown area, isn't it? Or that, the shipping thing behind, anyway, it's a lot of downtown that still comes under the city of Benton Harbor, right? So couldn't we like partner with them? They have funds, we have funds,
They
or
don't-
something that is in the downtown area?
Absolutely, that's what I suggested earlier when I mentioned the Liberty Theater. They are the new owners of the Liberty Theater, as I understand it.
State
And
theater.
They, the state, I'm sorry, State Theater, the one that's still standing.
Yeah, the one
Yeah,
downtown.
they act.
They have the ability to come to you and ask for your support. And or, it's not financial support, moral support, literal support, something along those lines. So that is a partnership that's already in process.
Commissioner Adams?
Thank you for that, because shortly I'll be touching base on something that I want to know that didn't get the same preferential treatment. And actually, there's a couple back there in the back that we'll be hearing from publicly. I just want to make sure that Benton Harbor residents that come before this board get the same thing that everybody else that has come forth, the same thing. And this property that has come into question about 275 Pipestone would be one of them. It's been years. Yeah.
Okay, so that's on our agenda, but does anyone have any comments regarding the issue at hand with,
I do.
if Teresa, oh, go ahead.
I do. And I don't think that, that it should cost this board for our consultant to go to a public meeting. Miss Teresa explained to us that she comes down and she's in Benton Harbor quite a bit back and forward. So if that's one of the times that she may be, I don't know. But I don't think that it should cost us.
Does anyone else have any comments on the board? Does anyone on the board plan on attending? I do have the flyer here.
I'm planning to attend
Okay.
for everyone.
You're
I
attending?
might.
I think I'll attend one as well.
You got the flyer?
Yes, I can forward it to
Is it
everybody.
public? Yeah. Should be on Facebook. When is it?
25th, what day is that?
I'm
So
not
are we-
sure if you and or multiple.
Yeah.
Multiple members
That's
are
on
planning on
Monday.
attending, then I take back my recommendation. I think that there's no need for Teresa. to do
We
that.
The
are
4th.
always involved in stuff like this in our community. We are. And that's how I get so much information. I was at one yesterday.
Okay, so I think we're good. I'm gonna attend, Miguel's gonna attend, Commissioner Adams,
And I'll
and then, okay,
Yeah.
Commissioner Kennard. So we'll go ahead and attend, and so I don't think at this time we'll need Teresa to attend this one.
Great.
And then if we feel like it would have been value added, next time we can of course revisit it. Teresa, do you have any additional?
No further communication.
So if no further ado, we'll go ahead and move on to public comment. Okay, first up, we have Commissioner Clark.
First of all, I wanna know, can Teresa introduce herself?
Yes, I am Teresa Searles with Fishbeck. Mark Florian has been a Brownfield consultant here for a number of years, and he is retiring, and this board solicited for a new Brownfield consultant and chose Fishbeck, so we started in January. Mr. Florian has agreed to stay on during the transition, so we've been working collaboratively together for these past few months.
Okay, I gathered that, but I just wanted to make sure, just my observation. Also, yeah, the downtown forum is 3 different days. And one of the days gonna be at City Hall, the other 2 are gonna be at the library. And Commissioner Santana has it down. So, and yes, to answer your question, they are part of Benton Harbor, that is actually still in my ward, and it's actually 4 wards. So, yeah. That's all.
Okay. Did anyone want me to tell the dates real quick? I don't know if everybody heard them, but 3/25 is gonna be at City Hall. And the 20th and 26th is gonna be at the library. The time is the same for every day. It's gonna be 6 to 7:30 p.m. Okay, and then any more public comments? You guys-
So hello everyone, I
She
would
probably
like
need to come up to the mic.
You don't mind, we can hear you.
So, hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Keena King, and I've been a part of this community. I've born and raised and grew up here, so excited that you guys are looking to do new things and add on to the work that's happening with the Brownfield Authority. I do want to say that there has been a disinvestment in the Benton Harbor community. And when we talk about like developers that will be here looking at different things that development will happen, when you talk about the community and some of the needs of the community, it's important that we understand that this community has been marginalized, and we understand that there have been need for different funding opportunities and support to happen within the community. And when you talk about and look at different developers that have been able to come into the community and have been able to develop properties and receive funding and support with different initiatives to do what they needed to do, have it always been in the best interest of the city as a whole. We have a housing crisis here in the city. So I'm asking the commissioners Brownfield Authority, as we are looking at supporting the work that's happening around housing and the different initiatives, that we really take a look at what is happening in the community. Again, there has been a lot of different developers. There has been a lot of different things that has came to this city, and to see still some of the conditions that our families are living in, when we see some of the disparities that is happening in the city of Benton Harbor specifically, when we know the St. Joseph area and Benton Harbor area, there's a 20-year life difference expectancy for African Americans. So I want us to consider and take into account when we talk about development, what does that truly mean? And when we talk about community, understanding community means something different for everybody, right? And so let's look at what we're really trying to do. And I'm excited that this is opening up to provide some additional opportunities for the housing aspect with Brownfield Authority, so that we can try to collectively look and see how we can fill the gap of some of the need in regards to housing crisis in our community. So.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, Ms. King and the gentleman sitting back there, they are two that I had in an email because they wanted an application for some projects. And I asked Mark, because I thought that we had put the old cleaners down there within a brownfield plan. And I think that's what initially his ask was for that property, as well as the old dump garbage site to be put into a brownfield. I mean, I don't know how that works. What they wanted those answers, and I'm not the one to give them to them. They need guidance, and it's you guys.
We do have the application later on the agenda, so maybe we want to talk about it then.
Yes, let's go ahead and do that going forward. So next up is committee reports. I don't think we have any. Okay. Next we have treasurer's report.
All right, Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to direct yourself and members to page 12 of your packet. We have the financials for the month of February, through the month of February. On page 12 specifically, you have a balance sheet. Call to your attention your cash. Everybody likes cash. Right now you have $999,864 sitting in the bank. You also have receivables from the city of Benton Harbor for the winter tax capture of $106,692. Your payables this month are only $4,463. You're in a great cash and financial position. If I may direct you to the next page, page 13, you have the income statement through the end of February. You have roughly $329,000 in income. You have just under $115,000 in expenses.
Your pages are off.
Well,
Yeah, these pages are.
The pages are off. I'm sorry.
the income statement is just on page 12.
The balance sheet is on 11.
You've done 11, all right. I'm sorry, thank you. There's a little bit of confusion. Would you like me to restate?
No.
Did everybody follow that? You all heard the number 999,000. I know you heard that part. Okay, well, let's look at the income statement then, which is through page 12, the right-hand column. Once again, you have $329,000 roughly in income, $114,807 in expenses. And I point out to you that your expenses, according to based on your budget, in comparison to your budget, are less than 50% of what you budgeted. So you're in really good shape with respect to your expenses. Your expenses being those of your attorney, those of your consultants, and those of Plant Moran. So you're in very good shape. You only have roughly 3 months left, as I recall, in this fiscal year. That gives you a net income down the bottom right-hand corner of that page, $214,498. I'm going to put a caveat on that and say that is pre-winter tax disbursement. So we still have a winter tax disbursement to make. You'll be taking that up, I'm sure, at your next meeting. There'll probably be upwards of $50,000 that will come out of that disbursement. So that is your financial statement for this month. Madam Chair, would you like to approve that now, or would you like me to move on to payables?
If you want to go ahead and move on to payables, we can approve them all together unless, I think that's fine. Yes, payables, we'll approve them all.
Okay, your payables listing is on page 13. By and large, these payables reflect services performed in February, with the exception of, it also includes Fishbeck's services in the month of January. The total amount was $4,913.89. There's nothing anomalous about these payables. Once again, you have your consulting services and you have your Plant Moran services. We're looking for your approval to pay the bills.
Make a motion to approve. I have a question.
You need a second.
I second it.
Okay. Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are still, can we get an update on the dialysis property? And we're still holding for the Fidelity building? That's under payables?
No.
No? Yeah, I could be wrong.
I got a question.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Back to Ms. Adams. Your question specifically is what?
Are we still collecting for the Fidelity building?
Yes.
And we're still holding those funds?
No, those funds have been released.
Okay,
each
so
and every
we're no
time.
longer collecting?
We are collecting,
But-
capturing.
Okay, but we releasing them
We
back to
release
the
them
city?
as we capture.
Okay, I guess my question was, why isn't the city just capturing their taxes if we're no longer in agreement with them? We no longer have a development agreement. It's over, right?
No, you
No?
have yet to reimburse the city with respect to all of the expenses they incurred on the Fidelity building.
The city?
That is correct.
And how much
City
was that in all? I mean,
$255,992.63. Balance due of $11,751.77. My guess is that after this winter tax cycle, you may have paid off that balance. And that may be a done agreement.
I guess I'm just asking that question because prior city management, when we released 127,000, once they came up with receipts from somewhere, that was it. But I think after that, we released 75,000 more, something like that, to that effect. I don't know. And I'm not gonna, we'll figure it out.
We have a very detailed itemization of those payments and those expenditures. If you'd
Yeah.
like to see that, we can provide that. Actually, next month you will see that
Okay.
because it's on the disbursement memo.
Okay, my question about the dialysis center, that was one that wasn't even supposed to be within the brownfield. And I'm not sure how that worked out. I mean, it was something I was fussing about during the time that it was happening, because I knew that in exchange for some of the Gene Clark Park property, that it became mitigated piece of land to the community. We had a different mayor then, but still,
And I understand your concern. However, this body had no part in.
In a development agreement.
Property.
in a development agreement that I've never seen.
I'd be happy to email you a copy. of
Please, thank
that
you.
For the Liberty dialysis site.
Okay,
Certainly.
okay.
Miguel?
I got a question about the Main Street Market project. When did that, I don't remember being, I'm probably on the board then. Can somebody tell me about that project?
We approved it.
The Main Street Market,
May,
yes, that is, Satbir Singh. That had a $50,000 maximum reimbursement associated with that agreement. And that has a balance due at this moment of just under $23,000.
When did that, when we had an agreement?
When was that, the initial payment cycle, what I can tell you, I don't have the agreement in front of me, but I can tell you that the first payment to Mr. Singh occurred in 2011. We've been capturing on that site since 2011 and reimbursing him on each capture.
Main Street.
Does anyone else have any other?
May, M-A-Y.
It may, yeah.
Where are you?
Wait, 12.
I don't see May Street on, oh, there it is, there it is. I didn't see the address, okay, there it is.
Does any, you have something here.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any other questions before we vote?
We have a motion by Adams, supported by Childs.
Call for the question?
Kennard,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes,
Motion carried, Madam Chair. That was to pay bills, and it was also for the approval of financial statements.
Next up, we have old business, and there's none, unless anyone has anything to add. No. Moving on to new business. First up is the project application.
So we've kind of alluded to this both in the presentation, and Member Adams was mentioning project applications of developers being interested. So we do have a process in place where you have a project application, and historically it's been that they would come and speak with Mr. Florian, and he could evaluate whether that was a good fit for this board's goals, align with statute of, those resources that you had available to you. So Fishbeck has reviewed this application. There's some obvious updates that are needed. That communication should now be directed to myself instead of Mr. Florian. But there's some other updates that you may choose to add. For example, if you want to participate with housing, there's some different housing information we would need. May or may not be applicable to every project. So in your packet, you have both the current application as it stands, and we have some proposed revisions from Fishbeck. I did also want to mention that you do have a $500 fee associated with that. So when an application is submitted, that fee would go for my time or Mr. Florian's time to review the project and see if it has merit before it comes before the board.
Do we want to let her finish? Are you all done?
Well, I mean, basically, here's the application. You don't have to, make a motion or take action on it, but I would at least like some discussion held And, you know, it may be appropriate to take action if you would like to change to this new application. I know there's been discussion in the past as well, you know, wanting this application to be more readily available. This board could choose to post it on your website, keeping in mind that there is that application fee to go with that review. You may want it to be more accessible. You may prefer to have a level of a screening tool associated. So I think it would be good for this board to discuss. And I don't know if you want to add anything.
Commissioner Adams?
Thank you. Which is the old and which is the new? That's not
So
my
in your
question,
packet, the current one says current application across it. The new
but-
one
Okay,
says
okay,
draft.
okay, gotcha. Okay, so my question is, and I'm gonna sound like, the gentlelady of the third ward here for a second. Because I think that, as one of, the public speakers spoke about, you know, the disenfranchisement of, the people in this community that finally want to do some things, if it's at all possible, that they get some type of preferential treatment when it comes to, a $500 fee for an application if they're a longtime resident of Benton Harbor that want to do something. And I think that if this board can, I think that it's something that maybe we should get our full body of commissioners to look at to see if it's something that they can approve and think that it's okay as well. I mean, I don't know what that would look like for.
So you're saying that you want the full body of commissioners, not the Brownfield board to?
No, and I started off with the Brownfield, but I just ended it that if it's something that we can't do, maybe we should send it to them.
If I
And see
may,
if they
wait,
think
may-
since something comes here and then goes to them secondly anyway.
So, but do I understand that you're asking,
Mr. Candler, go ahead, please.
do I understand that you're asking for a different or lower fee for Benton Harbor residents who want to apply for Brownfield support or want to apply for, make an application for, is that what?
Who's saying that?
That's
Pretty
what
much
I'm
so.
asking.
Pretty much so,
Commissioner
yes,
saying.
yes, pretty much so. And the reason being is because when we've been redlined out of loans from banks for a very long time. And I mean, I really don't even want to go into the long drawn out thing that we know to be true. So I'll just leave that there.
So I'm gonna go ahead and ask for clarity. So if I'm understanding this correctly, the current fee is $500.
Correct.
So we're saying that that's too expensive for a
I think that we
developer
should
to
work
pay.
with,
I'm
Benton Harbor
lost.
residents as we do with our Gene Clark Park. They get a free pass to go into their park and enjoy it. I also think that, I mean, just in my opinion, that we should work more so with Benton Harbor residents that, you know, I'm gonna take it way back to when I first became a member in 2002. And it was one of the only reasons that I saw what needed to be done to approve a $500 million development to kickstart the growth and more jobs of this community. And it started down here in the 4th Ward. And I've heard the cries of this community for the past 3 terms serving as an elected official about they building downtown, but nothing is happening up in the community. Yeah, we have a 1st ward, we have a 2nd ward, we have a 3rd ward and a 4th ward. And if we don't be careful, we're gonna have a 5th one. But I just think that the only reason that I approved it was because I saw that it was a way to jumpstart something for our community as a whole. And at some point, there was a timetable that we were given. And this is where my confusion came in of thinking that Benton Harbor was collecting all this money because as an elected official, I see the funds that go to the county, over $1 million a year for the development. And I'm just like, if this is the type of money that we're going to be capturing, then we're going to get some stuff done, not only downtown, but up in the inner city too. So I think the time has arrived.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, sure.
My
I mean, lend a little bit of clarity and perhaps a solution at the same time. Historically, we have encouraged you as members, when you come across a developer or a potential developer, or someone, a citizen who's expressing interest in the Brownfield Authority, to encourage them to reach out to us directly. Let your consultant be the, for lack of a better term, the gatekeeper. She knows what is eligible to be supported by this authority. She's going to ask the basic questions about taxable investment, job creation, et cetera, that you saw on Teresa's slide. And if it all seems to make sense and it's a viable candidate, she's gonna steer that person towards the application on the website and say, fill it out. Now, whether you choose to charge the same amount to a Benton Harbor resident or a non-resident, I guess that's up to you, but let me just say, it takes the same amount of effort to review that application, whether you're a resident or a non-resident. And then I'm gonna challenge you one more, since we've got city commissioners sitting here. I bet the application for other zoning issues or other plan review issues is the same for a resident as they are for a non-resident. So I don't know that you want to start a disparity here on this board.
Yeah.
And one other thing I'll add is, if you're developing property, honestly, $500 shouldn't even be any, I mean, you know, it's not like it's cheap to develop. So if you're coming to the plate and you don't have $500, can you develop it? That would be my next question. Do you have the funds and the resources to even develop a property? So that would be a concern of mine personally, if that was gonna be a red flag or that was gonna be a stopgate where someone couldn't proceed, if we're talking about a minimum fee of $500. So I would be concerned if they had the resources to proceed with the project. I think you were next, Ms. Chandler.
Good, very good point. Also, I'd like to know though, is the application the same as for a developer who say wants to build a housing project as for a resident who wants to restore a dry cleaning business? Are the applications the same?
Yes, it's one application, and this is an administrative tool, so it's not something that needs really formal approval or, you know, needs necessarily like board approval, or, you know, if you want to send it to the commission, you could, but it's just an administrative tool. It's not saying we're putting a brownfield plan together, or, you know, some of those items that have more formal action. This is that first screening tool to determine whether a project has potential merit for support by this board.
And
I just
I
asked
might add that this application fee is an eligible expense for reimbursement. If the application gets approved, the project moves forward, they can get this $500 reimbursed to them through the future TIF.
Great, Commissioner Hack.
Thank you. And you're right, and we don't want to start that here. We really don't. I think that anybody that comes before us that wants to do anything, that we can work with them. Mark's made a statement though, and the young lady that came up and spoke earlier was one of them. I've watched her mother for 20 years between here and the county, looking for some help for this big old historical building just been sitting in the inner city, in the second ward, and to no avail. And I think she's probably gotten 20 years older, and her daughter is here now. I mean, so I followed the process.
Last comment is, it's a great process when all parties do their job. I don't recall having ever been contacted by the young lady that's either
No.
behind me now or was here behind me
Not her.
with respect to this issue. I've been contacted by you and I've responded to you. I welcome those types of inquiries, and I'm sure that Teresa will as well.
So just to sum up the application, if everyone, is it okay if we say, you guys, we can take a look at it and then come back next month and confirm it? It's just clerical. I don't think we need to make it into a bigger issue than it is.
Right.
So if that sounds good, we'll look at them and compare it and then come back next month. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the 275 Pipestone.
I actually sent you something, Teresa, if you can pull it up and show them, that everybody see it. It's a,
Let me let her finish.
I sent, the listing. It's a arts and culture
I
center.
apologize, I do not have that.
You don't have it?
Okay, I'm sorry, I have one question regarding 21, if I could quickly have you hold, Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
The young lady wanted to know if for some reason she paid the $500 and the project does not go forward, what happens to it?
The fee would be, it's
But
already been expended.
in theory-
Time for
In
review.
theory, before they even get to that process, it should be a good shot that they're gonna be approved, correct? Because you're gonna be vetting it out with the person, correct, before they even get to that, or no?
You
I
did
guess
get
that my
it
question?
depends on the procedure, and that's something that should be decided.
Okay,
Is the fee come right away with this application, or do we want that level of review before
I
they
don't
fill
know if we
out?
want a detailed review, but aren't they having some kind of pre-conversation with you ahead of time, or are they just jumping right in?
Well, it has been suggested that maybe we want this application more readily available, like on the website. If it's on the website, someone could just fill it right out and send it in.
Yeah.
Historically, if I understand correctly, procedure has been that they would have those initial conversations first
Okay,
before filling out the
so I'm gonna
application.
say in this case, have the initial conversation first and then fill it out
Because it's not refundable,
because it's non-refundable. Okay, sorry about that, Commissioner.
unless they go through
And let's get the reimbursement. So Commissioner Adams, you have the
I
floor.
have one question that came back to mind. When we got our last grant and the abatement was going on all over the community or some spots, there was an application and it was for anybody, including the board members. If we had something that we thought could have been an eligible activity. Does that still apply to us as board members if we have a project and we need something looked at? And now I'm just referring back to Colfax, but we ain't gonna stay there. But I'm just saying, because it still has never been done.
There's nothing that prohibits, I'll jump in, Teresa, there's nothing that prohibits any one of you as board members to bring a project of your own to the table. Now, clearly, you'd be in a conflict situation when the vote would come up as to
Right.
whether supported or not supported. But certainly, you have every
Right.
right to bring a project.
Right, okay.
So
Just for clarity, I need,
we can't vote on our own project?
Cannot.
no, that's a conflict of interest.
Conflict.
But I'm just saying that we're not excluded from development. Yeah, and I think that that's something important to know.
Okay. So in the interest of time, if we can go ahead and jump back to the 275. and I'm
Did you
gonna-
get that, Teresa?
I apologize.
I
if you
just
sent
resent
to
it.
me.
If you could show it on the screen, the pictures. Anyway, 275 Pipestone is a beautiful dwelling that has multiple uses. That could be a nice tool for the community. We have a lot of young people over in that part of the community that walk and gather and doing things that a place like a safe place and space could offer them more, such as training, some after-school programming. It's a building that has the presence of some contaminants, I think. I don't know, Mark, we never got to it. Anyway, I thought that I'd be able to show the slides of it because it's a jewel. It's a jewel. You don't see it? I sent it to you twice.
No, I don't think I have good Wi-Fi signal in here.
Okay.
It came through on my phone, but I don't see an attachment. I just see the email from you.
Anyway, I think that I would like, if this board would allow Ms. Teresa to pick up where Mark possibly left off to do the abatement that needs to, the investigative work that needs to be done. We need to seek grant funding for that, or what does that look like? I think that it could be a asset to this community if this board would invest in it to actually make a purchase and go after the brownfield dollars that I know are there. And like I said, there's a time limit on these things and some grant writers willing to help. And we can do some things to make it and help it to become sustainable.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mark?
for clarity, are you suggesting that perhaps the Brownfield Authority consider acquiring this property?
That as well,
Repositioning this property for some intended
community use. Community use for the whole community.
So in consideration of that, if I may, Chair.
Yes, Teresa, then we'll jump back to you.
This board can acquire property with use of your LVRF fund if it's for economic development purposes. So you would, need to assess, does it meet that economic development? And then you would need to assess, do we want to purchase it? Do we want to be a landlord? How long would we hold on to it? What does that look like? And evaluate all those considerations.
So, Ms. Chandler, go ahead.
Well, you did answer the question, can the Brownfield purchase property?
If it's for economic development
For
purposes.
economic, yes.
Community
But I don't-
use.
I don't think that it should be, redundant or, I mean, I think it should be for something that we don't already have. Like Boys and Girls Club kind of handles the youth thing.
They don't handle all of them now.
Well, probably not all, but again, that it should be for something we don't already have. Who would manage it, and all those questions she just presented, like, are we gonna be landlords, and is that something Brownfield can do?
I would like to just piggyback. I know we can purchase the property, but I don't understand the whole landlord process. So if there's something that I could read, I know I have that packet, if someone can refer me to an area of that, I would like to look at that because I'm not clear on how that process would work. Even from a standpoint of paying a bill, for example, if you own a commercial property, you have to pay the light bill, the gas bill, and does that. So if someone could let me know where to read, because I don't know how to do that. And maybe down here, you guys know. So go ahead. I don't know who's first, but I'll let Ms. Kennard.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, one of the things I know about the building is a historical building. It is over 100 years old. But it was just in a prime spot for the community to have access to it. And inside is good places for the youth to be in a safe place. Because I can see sometimes when they're rambling through the neighborhood, sometimes they get into trouble. But then it's got a safe place, a gymnasium, and they got classrooms that can probably involve the children in the evening with different subject matters. So I think it's a beautiful spot, but now, like they said about the management part of it and everything, I know there's a lot of components in order to run a area or a building like that.
Okay, and then Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a whole lot of nonprofits, and there's a reason why. They find ways to make themselves sustainable wherever they dwell. Not that I have to be a grant writer, they're running things, but to open it up to other nonprofits that need a house. And we've been meeting so much in so many different places and locations that we're actually trying to come together and capacity build, if that makes sense. Not only the capacity build, but to come out of the little bitty silos that we have been working in. And there's a lot of them that are on board with it. Not only you have to see this place. The inside of the cathedral part is bigger than the State Theater. It's huge. It's immaculate. It's beautiful. It's a place where we can host plays and have events and stuff. We have a problem. Some people have a problem with paying $100 an hour for places to host and to get together and gather. I think that this is an opportunity for this board to actually give back to the community. And it has a basement that used to be rooms that were sectioned off. I actually grew up across the street from this joint, okay? And I used to have Bible study over in summer school. And that's why I know what now is, it could be a gym. Well, it's been turned into a gym. It used to be separate rooms. There's actually a stage downstairs, a commercial kitchen that needs to be redone. On this side is closed off and they're not in this photo because it's contaminated. Nobody goes over there. And we want to be able to open it up further and see, let all ears hear. I find money to pay the people I want to work, to clean up or whatever. So it can be done. We have workers that have made sure that this community got water, drinkable water, for 2 years in the depth of winter. They delivered it to you. Nobody asked anybody to come out of their pocket. You know why? Because nonprofits found the money to pay them. Just as we will to upkeep it. Actually, we need to work with other entities in this community like KPEP. They go over in other communities and work, to put them to work in the community that they doing their time in while they pass through or whatever. We have some that's on parole, some that has to do community work, make all these things work together for the good. We have block grant dollars that belong to the citizens of Benton Harbor, Michigan, that can be utilized to put the children to work in the summer months. There are all kind of avenues when you can think outside of a box.
Thank you, Commissioner. And she brought up a good point. If we could add to your list, Mark, who would do HR? Like, we create jobs, it has to be an HR team. If you could put that on there as well. And then Miguel was next. He wanted to comment.
I just wanted to know if the building, I haven't been that way in a while, but if the building purpose right now is for sale, since we talk about personnel, is it for sale right now?
Yes.
This is the actual listing.
So I have a couple of questions, actually. Number one, does the Brownfield Authority currently own any property that we manage? Because I don't know what that looks like. I'd be interested to know what that looks like, because yeah, how does that, how that works? Number two, yeah, I think it's a great building. The part that I've seen, in my, employee capacity, we looked at the building as an option for our program. But, yeah, not that it's not a good site, but how do we, I just don't see how we
I think that's what I was at.
would own that.
Had asked. So at this point, I just need to get some answers because I don't know. And I think Mark, you took a couple, or Teresa took a couple notes on a couple questions, because before we can really decide, I need to be clear on, and I think everybody just has to be clear on the process, and I don't know that answer. So I can't vote on anything if I don't know the process of what would happen. So if you want to speak to that.
Well, we both took notes on that. I'm sure we can get you something back, but to answer your question, Ms. Chandler, yes, this authority has owned the property in the past. Most recently, it owned the corner of Water Street and North Shore, which it deeded over to the city of Benton Harbor for use as an EV charging station facility. That was done, I believe, just prior to you joining this board, if I'm not mistaken, or shortly thereafter. I would encourage all of you, though, when you consider these types of opportunities, not to pick just this one out, but these types of opportunities, go back in the handouts that you received of Teresa's presentation at the very beginning about what your purpose is. And think of everything in terms of your mission. I always say your mission. And think of a great big funnel, okay? You're gonna throw all this stuff in the top of that funnel, and you gotta throw what comes out is gonna have to have economic development, it's gonna have to have job creation, it's gonna have to have a community interest.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that you can actually do.
Yeah.
All this other stuff that we've talked about here today, it's all good.
Yeah.
And needs to be done, but you have to understand what your lane is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the statute says you gotta stay in that lane.
Okay, so one more on this and then we're gonna move on.
Yeah, I've talked a little bit, but I don't know, when do the EV charge station for project for the takeoff?
Mr. Little, can you speak to the EV charging station project?
Yes, it will come about when we're funded for it. As a matter of fact, we had discussions with I&M 2 weeks ago, where they were trying to assist us in getting a company that does this to come in and work with us to kind of start the process, because we were trying to get something in before the PGA came, but the company that backed out. We are pursuing the funding process the state of Michigan is using to place EV charging stations all around Lake Michigan along the I-94 corridor. Indiana's doing it in theirs, Illinois is doing it in theirs, Wisconsin, we're doing it in ours. And specifically communities that are within, I forget how many miles of the highway, I believe it's something like 30 miles or 25 miles, something like that, will be eligible to pursue these. Now, we could have done something by now if we had money to put into paying for the charging stations, but we don't, we're looking for grants to do that.
But, oh, I'm sorry.
So is this pertaining to the Brownfield currently? Because,
Yes, it is.
okay, Commissioner
And,
Adams.
and it was just a quick question, because I want to know, we don't want to be landlords, the Brownfield nor the city. But it seems like we turned ourselves into one, we traded it off, give a trade off.
Whether it wants to be or not.
But I just wanted to touch base on something else that board member Chandler said. And that's the mere fact that we don't want to be landlords, we're not going to be landlords. That thought just left.
Do you want to say that? Member
No,
Collins?
but I'd like, what we need first and foremost is to get that assessment done of the presence of the contaminants. So can we start, I mean, does it take a motion
So
to,
that's another piece, Mark, that I'm not 100%, because normally the developer would, if in normal cases, the developer would incur that
there is no
cost
developer.
and do that. So that would be
Yeah.
a cost that we would have to vote to
There's no
incur.
developer. This will be the communities.
What perhaps we have the ability to do is to reach out to Eagle, who is the recipient of one of those EPA grants. And they're looking for sites to assess, at least they were.
Yeah.
And perhaps we can ask if this would be a candidate site, get it done for free.
If we could start there, that would be wonderful. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and, unless you have something, Teresa, to say about that.
Do you want to make a motion to formally
Yes.
authorize that reach out?
Make a
Support.
motion to formally authorize the reach out to Eagle to see if we can get this evaluated for free.
And if not, seek a grant to do so, because there are plenty available through the Justice 40 initiative.
So we'll see if this way goes through.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I don't think you need a motion for that, but a general consensus would serve just fine.
Okay, perfect,
Okay?
I agree. Yeah.
perfect, okay. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to member comments.
Can,
Can I ask a question on that? Is the Brownfield paying for that or the city?
wait, point of order.
So I'll go ahead and give,
Just clarity, I'm sorry.
and you can go ahead and confirm, because we're gonna try to get it for free, but Mark, if you wanna explain to Pro Tem what we just talked about the Eagle, is that what you're referring to, the assessment, correct?
Yeah, the assessment, who, is the city or Eagle?
So
The hope
hopefully,
would be Eagle.
Well, not Hope, I'm saying who's paying for
we're
The
gonna,
hope would be Eagle.
we're gonna
Nothing's been
request.
authorized thus far.
it? So if Eagle does not say they're paying for it, then who will pay for
We're gonna come back here, we're gonna discuss it, and Commissioner Adams, said a grant opportunity. So we don't know just yet, we're gonna go
it?
this
So we
route.
hope that Eagle is, if not, then it's gonna come to the city.
No, we're gonna come back here and discuss grants.
Everything coming through the city anyway.
It may not actually be done.
Right.
We're reaching out to look for opportunities.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to.
I have a question while we're still on this type of abatements and stuff. Can we get those addresses, Madam Chair, of the property, the old Willie Williams garbage site and, the old cleaners down the street?
What do you mean? I'm sorry. What-
They,
what
they,
are you asking?
they, for a long time, that building had some type of contaminants because it was a dry cleaners.
So you're asking to Eagle also?
No, I'm asking, are they brownfield sites? Are they within our plan already, or the gentleman wanted to know if he could put them in, because if he didn't make any more investments, he wants to collect that on his investment. The email that I sent while we're on this type of subject.
Did we move on to member comments? We're still
No.
on 275 Pike Street.
I tried to
We're
get
not,
an
it sounds like
answer.
we're on neither, because she's talking about something totally different. So if there's another email, it sounds like Commissioner Adams sent.
No. No. This was something that was asked before, and while we're on this type of subject of having, what is the word?
Assessments?
Assessments done. Are those properties within the brownfield already? Or he never, I expected an answer today. He's here, but he just chose not to speak.
Oh,
For the other property.
Willie Williams' property is not in your brownfield plan
Okay,
at this time. If you are referring to the former American Laundry
that one.
site, yes, that is in your brownfield. plan.
Okay. He didn't know that, but now his ears hear it. And I guess he wanted to know if in fact he could place Willie Williams within the brownfield plan. I don't know what that looks like. He needs to fill out an application.
can we go
Okay.
through the normal process, which we
Yeah.
just talked
No,
about?
that email was old. This meeting is about to come to an end.
Okay,
Wanted clarity.
so you, or Mr. Williams? No? If so, can you email Teresa? Or we'll give you her contact, so we can go through the correct process. So now we're gonna move on to member comments. Who would like to go first? We'll start with, how about Commissioner Adams?
Why not? Why not? Because I just stated it. This gentleman has been waiting months. We have some meetings that we haven't even had because members canceled us. But we can't take business, we can't do business like that. When we miss meetings, months on edge, when people come to us and want to do business or find out how business should be done, when do they get an answer? So I'm asking if in fact those two properties, if I could email and make that connection so that person can have mutual conversation with our consultants and get the answers that they need.
Yes. Okay, how about we go, Mr. Chandler, do you have any member comments? Okay, what about Miguel?
None.
Ms. Kennard?
Yes. I'd like to thank all of the audience that's here. But also, I'd like to say, this week I had my first opportunity to get involved with some things that I think could be a great source of information to our city. I went to the CAPCON, the Michigan Municipal League, had some information on the inner city. I see that they address so many times the downtown areas of all of our little small cities as well, so it's probably the largest cities. But they have a host of information where that this could touch bases, lots of information on funding for the inner city. So this might be, what we could tap in to see if there's, some funding that we could get to enhance the neighborhood as far as what you're talking about, Commissioner.
Absolutely.
And so this would be a great opportunity for us to at least look into that and see if that's something that could, work for our city, because our city has a lot of places that we need to really touch on, especially to make our community and our people feel whole. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to especially get into that session to see what could come from that area and helping our city. But whatever I can do in going to different places and to see what can work for us as a whole, to see that the inner city is not left alone standing and it's just addressed for the downtown area. So that's all I have to say, when I just.
Thank you.
No comment.
Mr. Childs?
No
Okay.
comment, not today
No
anyway.
comment. You change your mind.
I did change my mind. I would be interested to see maps of what are the Renaissance and Enterprise zones in the city of Benton Harbor. And I'll contact either one of you about how that impacts our development. So,
You said an enterprise zone.
Enterprise, where, yeah, those lines where they are in the city, Enterprise or Renaissance zone.
And I don't have any comments. I'll move for us to adjourn the meeting.
Need to adjourn.
And I'll see everyone on April 11th.
Mark, you'll get that other map as well, that gerrymandering.
Will of
Yeah.
the Harbor Shores.
Yeah. You know what I forgot, what it was, the Boys and Girls Club are not, they vote is two of them, but they can't.
Is anyone of the public